a stage, all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. This is a line from William Shakespeare's As You Like It, written in 1599. His idea that the world is a very large play, where we act as different characters throughout our lives, is very true today. In society, we don costumes and makeup and characters to present ourselves to the world, or to step on stage. We grow up, change schools, get jobs, entering and exiting different aspects of our lives, and as we do, we change our characters. Everyone does this. You all do this. Think about your interactions with your parents, or your kids or colleagues. Listen, I do this too. When I'm watching football and it's nearly the end of the game and the Packers are down by 8, Jets fans should understand what I mean, I'm losing my mind. You can bet I don't use the same language during class. No, at school I put on my mild-mannered alter ego. I'll introduce the two of you later. For now, let me set the next scene. It's late August, 1776, and the Long Island heat is unbearable, made worse by the multi-layered uniform that clings to your body. You ache from previous battles, most of which you and your dwindling army have lost. It's nearly dawn, and with an empty stomach, you must rally your troops for the battle ahead. You adjust your uniform, polish your brass buttons, and shine your shoes. You mount your strong horse, and you ride to the front of camp, where you summon the attention of your men. Part of you wishes you were back at home with your wife, not standing in front of this hopeless crowd of bedraggled young soldiers, many far too young to be walking into battle. But here you are, General George Washington, commander of the ragtag Revolutionary Army that is close to defeat, and now about to fight the Battle of Long Island. Let us, you exhort, then rely on the goodness of our cause and the aid of the Supreme Being, in whose hands victory is, to animate and encourage us to great and noble actions. Think about that for a moment. You are feeding horse meat to your army to keep them from starvation. You've watched hundreds die of the heat or the cold or disease before they step foot on a battlefield. You, the chosen general to fight for your infant nation, have lost almost every battle you walked into and seen most of your young soldiers die of back wounds sustained as they ran from the battle. But this morning, hundreds of soldiers, their hearts still full of hope in the creation of the United States, need you to rally them together. Think again on George Washington's words. Let us then rely on the goodness of our cause and the aid of the Supreme Being, in whose hands victory is, to animate and encourage us to great and noble actions. These are not the words of a man who has watched his army fail time and time again. These are the words of a man who was hopeful and motivated in a moment where there should be no hope. He could have just gone up there and said, "All right, boys, we've lost every battle. Most of you can't shoot. Just aim straight, and hopefully you'll hit 2 of them before we retreat, okay?" But he didn't. He played the character of a brave, noble, confident general that his suffering army needed, putting aside his own worries and failures on the battlefield. Today, George Washington is the epitome of an invincible leader, but maybe he was just a 44-year-old farmer who recognized that his men needed confident leadership, and he was all they had. What they needed was George freaking Washington, winner of the Revolutionary War, first president of the United States, and the only 6-star general in U.S. history. And even though he had not yet become that person, he was going to give it to them anyway. He played the character of the confident general. He stood in front of his army and delivered his lines in his uniform, his costume, knowing it was what they needed to see and hear. He was correct, and that persona he took on stuck with him. Slowly, it wasn't just a facade anymore. Years of the revolution passed, and he never dropped the character because it had become an authentic part of himself. He discovered the power he had as a leader through his facade. This is truly what a facade can do for each of us. But today, a facade is known as a way to conceal or hide something, and therefore carries a very negative connotation. Not unlike Washington, we wear our characters and uniforms every day. These characters are social norms, which allow us to brand ourselves and conform to the larger group. For some boys, the uniform is boat shoes, sports apparel, and a random t-shirt. For some girls, the uniform is Ugg boots, Starbucks, and a glittery phone case. Look around. If you don't see a glittery phone case, it's because they're supposed to be away for this presentation. But I want to be clear. I am not shaming you. This conformity isn't necessarily a bad thing. Look at Washington's troops. To the extent they could, they wore similar attire to show that they were part of something together, and that togetherness likely made each of them a braver soldier. It is not the act, but the motive behind the action that reveals the nature of the facade. Let me give you an example. I promised earlier I would introduce you to my mild-mannered alter ego. This is my facade. Her name is Julia Mathas. She is kind, and she likes to think smart. She hates putting on makeup because it seems too artificial, but she's willing to lie when asked how she's feeling. When she was in 2nd grade, she found out that she loved to read, and this monumental discovery led to the picture you see here. Let's call it Julia's brand. A little antisocial, definitely passionate, proudly nerdy. She buried her nose in novels, she loved school, and she shook off bullies as if they didn't hurt her. Slowly, almost through osmosis, my facade permeated into who I was underneath. Over time, me and Julia became one. This Julia, my character, helped me find myself. The idea of using a character to understand yourself is especially important to high school students. I know it sounds cliche, but you have all either been given or have given this advice. Just be yourself. Just be yourself. As a hormonal high schooler obsessed with her grades and genuinely not sure if she wore the same shirt for the 2nd time this week, you might as well be telling me to do a backflip off a building. My concept of who I am is extremely limited at best. How can I possibly just be myself if I have no idea who I am? So here's my advice. Don't just be yourself. Don't just be yourself. Be whoever you want to be. Create yourself and remake yourself. Edit and change, copy and paste, absorb pieces of yourself from your facades. Be nerdy or artsy or sporty. Take stereotypes and norms and make your brand. Reflect on and embrace your facades. In this way, maybe we all can be less focused or less worried about just being ourselves, but rather use this time in our lives to explore various personas and instead create ourselves. Now that's something I would really like to see. Thank you.